I've been a huge music fan for many years, have a pretty voracious appetite for a lot of different kinds of music. And I think it's an inspiration to me. I've always, like when I was in college, studying, at work, I always have tried to have music on in the background. And I'm just not one of those people that I can't focus if I have music on. If I had people talk, like podcasts or, something like that, I wouldn't be able to do anything else. But with music, I can still have it on. But especially with my art, it motivates me, it gets me going.
Greetings and welcome to season 4 of Sit Down and Have a Tea, a podcast from the Wolfgang and Luke Art Gallery, now located in Sterling, Virginia. My name is Sylvana, and I'm hoping that you really enjoy the episodes. Thank you so much for listening. Well, hello, I'm reading left to right here. So Doug Schulte and Doug Fuller from there. Are you in your studio, Doug Schulte?
Yes.
And are you, Doug Fuller, in your studio? No, it's too much of a small room.
No, it's not my studio. It used to be the office. It is no longer that.
So we're just catching up, getting to know artists who are currently exhibiting at the gallery, and thought we would just have like a nice casual conversation. And I guess I kind of want to start just with music. I like to talk about kind of different types of music and see how it flows into the art. So I guess, Doug Schulte, you had mentioned about music before, so why don't we start there? What do you like to listen to?
Yeah, I've been a huge music fan for many years, have a pretty voracious appetite for a lot of different kinds of music. And I think it's an inspiration to me. I have it on I've always, like when I was in college, studying, at work. I always have tried to have music on in the background. I'm just not one of those people that I can't focus if I have music on. If I had people talk, like podcasts or, something like that, I wouldn't be able to do anything else. But with music, I can still have it on. But especially with my art, it motivates me, it gets me going. This spectrum of stuff I listen to is so broad that it's sort of hard to really narrow in. I would say over the years, I've gravitated towards stuff that runs a little toward the obscure. So, things that are kind of mainstream. I listen to probably mostly what would sort of broadly fall within the rock genre as kind of like an overarching genre. But within that, there's a lot of little like subgenres. So it'd probably be more of what people would call indie or alternative. Back when I was younger, it was like college rock was a term that was used for, bands that were coming out and kind of doing their own DIY stuff without a lot of major labels. So, some
like,
of the
are we talking REM or we're talking,
the big name that you would really think of as sort of paving the way for a lot of other bands that came would be on the American side would be REM as the one that sort of then broke out and became a big label band. But just, thousands and thousands of bands that came in their wake, bands like Pavement, Guided by Voices. I don't know how your musical tastes run, but you may not have heard of most of them. So I still keep current with a lot of what's coming out now, unlike most people my age. So I've I think for the last 25 or so years, curated a year's best list, like a lot of music magazines and publications do. So I kind of do my own version of that. So that kind of pushes me to continue to keep an eye out for things that are coming out. Hear a lot of new things that I otherwise wouldn't be likely to expose myself to. It's a lot easier now with streaming. I have a streaming service and I can listen to pretty much anything that's ever released anywhere in the world. So that's great. But just broadly to cover the rest, jazz, classical, really depends on electronic, really depends on my mood.
Yeah. So how do you curate your yearly list? Do you have like playlists?
Well, back in the day, I actually would burn my own CDs that I was buying and, rip them onto my computer. And then I would burn a sampler CD and then send them out to my friends and the people that liked my list. And I would do like mini reviews. I've kind of moved away from the mini reviews because they get pretty time intensive to do that for 20 or 50 albums, depending on how many I ultimately pick. Now it's a lot easier. I mainly just do throughout the year, I have like an albums playlist. So right now I've got my 2025 albums playlist. So it's just a massive amount of music that I dump entire albums into. And that's a lot of what I'll play then throughout the year. I'll just have that on shuffle and be hearing selections of all these different albums that I put in there. And I find them mainly through a couple different sites that I use to kind of see what's coming out. As I get to the end of the year, I'll usually do a singles sampler. So then I'll kind of cull it down. I may have 150 albums in there that I thought I might be interested in throughout the year. And then I'll cull it down to like 50. And then I'll just pick one song off of each and make a much shorter sampler playlist off of that. I have other friends that are musically inclined. So we'll text each other back and forth or just, periodically share a link
Yeah.
to a new song
Yeah.
on YouTube or something that they can then go out and watch or listen
Yeah.
to.
Do you play any instruments?
I don't. I had my next door neighbors were both musically talented growing up. So like middle school on up through, high school and college. The older of the two brothers became my best friend, basically. So I went off to college one place. He was actually back in Northern Virginia attending school here. So I'd see him when I would come home. And he played guitar and then his brother played drums. So we did have a band at one point called The Neighbors. It was sort of a fun punk band, and I was kind of the singer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we, wrote
Yeah.
tons of songs and recorded. Did these very rough recordings on the standard tape deck that we rigged up to be able to record 2 tracks. This was before they got more sophisticated, and then they both went on and had much more serious bands. But it was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. So would you say that anything with like you got into creation of music and stuff like that, did any of it kind of bleed into your artwork now in some way?
The spirit of it, I think, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that was honestly just the kind of freewheeling, don't
Kind of
really worry about.
Kind of a punk feel to
Yeah,
your work.
it had a very punk feel. I still, think about that energy. I try to bring that energy into my visual art.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a lot older now, so it's a little different, but I do try to channel that. And even like when I started making collages, 6, 7 years ago, I was doing things that I think then were more, I don't know, they had a little more of the, like, even from, a lot of the punk rock stuff, the posters that bands would create, there was a lot of visual art stuff in the background of the album covers, posters, especially like coming up around the DC area, you would go downtown. The 930 Club was the big club back then, but it started as a much smaller club in terms of just the actual venue itself. It was a pretty small space, but you would just see these like cool flyers all over, pasted up all over town, and a lot of, just a lot of really interesting graphic visual aspects to that as well. So
I know about the band Savoy Brown and the guitarist Kim Simmons. He is a painter and he did a lot of the album covers. And I've got an original, like his guitar. I got it from my dad and I just haven't transported it to where he is. Mr. Fuller, what do you tend to listen to when you're doing your work? Do you watch TV?
Nonstop play of Jim Croce and
Nice.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, you stole my heart with Gordon Lightfoot. That's awesome.
I do actually have a soft spot for Gordon Lightfoot. Now, I'm the complete opposite of Doug. I always feel so
in awe.
I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts and stuff. But if I had to listen to music, I would listen to Wilco, nothing but Wilco. And I've seen them in concert like 3 or 4 times. And
I love Wilco. They're one of my favorites.
Wilco's great. Have you seen their Tiny Desk concert? If you go to NPR's Tiny Desk concerts, they have all theirs archived, and they have a Wilco one where the drummer played nothing but things he found on someone's desk. And so anyway, I just like them a lot. I wish I was more musically spirited and willing to listen. They say your musical tastes end at high school or something like that. Most people listen to the rest of their lives. And my wife is really good at listening. She listens to a lot of hip hop and R&B, and she loves 21 Pilots and a bunch of newer groups. And she's good at, like you are, Doug, at searching out music and looking for it and being curious about it. And I'm not sure why I'm not, but I like I said, I listen to podcasts.
Well, Wilco is a very cool band. So I could probably introduce you to other stuff in that vein that you'd like, because I like a lot of the music that kind of falls in that same space. So that became like a whole subgenre of rock that I got really into. So
I rely on my 24-year-old daughter to craft all my playlists. Have you heard of Krong Bin?
Yeah, you told me about
That's
Cornell.
right. That's right. I listen to them occasionally, and it's really, really interesting music.
Very relaxing.
Yeah. And she actually made me a playlist for insomnia. So I listen to Krung Bin when I want to sleep. So
And just coming back to Jim Croce to tie it back, I think the first album I ever owned vinyl, was Jim Croce.
Oh, I remember
Which one?
Just a greatest hits thing
Oh,
or something like that. But I remembered, I guess I was maybe in 7th grade around at that time.
One with him smoking. I just remember like billowing smoke.
I think it is that one. Kind of sepia looking cover.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I ended up having 2 of his eventually. Bad Leroy Brown was.
That's classic.
I love that it had a swear word in it. And so.
The whole damn
in
tape.
California, my dad had a Datsun 260Z with an 8-track tape player, and we listened to Jim Croce over and over again.
So you've had your fill.
No, it's actually seared in my brain.
That's nice.
It's a good thing. And I do actually have a soft spot for Gordon Lightfoot. So,
well, I saw there was a concert series here at the Old Brogue in Great Falls. There was a guy doing Celtic kind of theme. It was in March, and he was doing these maritime songs. And then he pulled a Early Morning Rain song by Gordon Lightfoot. I mean, that's a challenging song, and he nailed it.
I heard it somewhere. There used to be a show called Something Americana or something like that, like on Sunday nights on WAMU. And I think that they played that song. And I couldn't, for the life of me, remember. I didn't know it if I heard it. I heard my favorite song ever on that show, Wilco doing Woody Guthrie.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Doing California Stars.
I love California Stars.
Oh, my God. I could live with that song over and over in my head.
Yeah, that's a favorite. That's like, I've had that song on so many playlists that I've heard it so many times, but I love it. And it's both those albums that they did with Billy Bragg, Mermaid Avenue, and then there's, I think, Mermaid Avenue too, 2 albums of it.
Yeah.
Really, really great.
So do you recommend, I'm on my Spotify right now, and I see the one with Billy Bragg and Wilco, and then just Wilco.
Yeah, it's Billy Bragg and Wilco. Yeah. Billy Bragg's a British singer.
Which one would you recommend?
Just Avenue album. That whole album's really good. But California Stars is
okay. Good track. Okay. That's good.
I will say that song, California Stars, saved my marriage, because I had heard it and I listened to it, and it was like we were going through a really rough time, and I will listen to the song, and he talks about him being laying down with his wife on a bed of California stars. And since I had lived in California, California represented kind of an escape to me. And it was like, going back to California and this bed of California stars and stuff. So,
that's
nice. And still, just for you, just the background on it, if you don't know it. So, Doug kind of mentioned it, but basically what they did was the family of Woody Guthrie gave Wilco and Billy Bragg rights or access to a bunch of lyrics that Woody Guthrie had written, but hadn't actually recorded as songs. So they wrote the songs and performed them. They wrote the music, he wrote the lyrics. So they took his lyrics.
That's very cool. One of the most interesting and best concerts that I had been to was in Charlottesville. It was Willie Nelson. I can't remember how old he was at the time. I mean, this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. But that guy, he stood up for a good 2 hours straight to song after song. And he ran through like a lot of Hank Williams, Woody Guthrie, all these wonderful pieces. And that's just one performance. I've been to a lot of concerts, but that one sticks with me. And I just liked all the Americana stuff.
My younger daughter, the 24-year-old, she went to see Willie Nelson at a concert down in Virginia Beach at like a festival. And she was like so into Willie Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah. She also loves Bob Dylan, which is
nice.
Interesting. So
yeah. And she's 24. That's awesome.
Hey, have you ever really wanted to understand the artists of today, not just what they create, but why they create it? At Wolfgang and Luke Art Gallery and Creative Space, that's exactly what we do. We introduce you to emerging artists, share their stories, and make discovering new work feel approachable and personal. It's a space where you can connect with creativity, see the meaning behind the canvas, and feel part of the bigger conversation. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, just scan the QR code or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
I like to think that I still hip my 24-ish-year-old daughters to music. They'll actually concede that I've actually informed a lot of their musical choices and stuff.
My kids were younger. We used to drive from my parents. They would stay at my parents for the day for a couple of days while we worked. We had a Black Keys tape or CD, and we listened to it. We used to love playing that, just cranking the Black Keys. And so to this day, she and I just love listening to the Black Keys.
I can't get my 6-year-old to listen to what I want to. I'm like, how do you guys do it? Because I want to be able to listen to my music again with her. So that's awesome.
Play it loud in the car sometime.
That was where a lot of ours was, like road trips.
That kind of freaks them out a little bit. Like, whoa, mom is cranking the music. Or play it if a song hasn't finished yet, just sit in the car in the driveway and turn it up real loud and you listen to it.
Yeah.
I did a thing with my girls I tried to make it take off, but it really didn't. They were probably like middle school age and I started what we were calling rock school. I was trying to educate them and play different kinds of things and explain connections between this early blues thing with blues rock from the British invasion and make connections. Eventually on our road trips, I'd play something, ask them, what's the genre? Who's the artist?
Yeah.
We only did it a couple of times, but it was fun. They still remember it.
Yeah.
Didn't go anywhere.
Nice. So Doug, when you're doing your artwork and you're listening to podcasts mostly, sorry, I didn't specify which Doug Fuller, you're listening to podcasts. What podcasts do you like to listen to?
Well, really what I do is I have these AirPods that don't fit in my ears well enough and they're always falling out. So I spend more of my time just like picking them up and trying to keep them out of the disgusting cat box. Podcasts. I listen to a lot of like NPR spin-off type stuff. Oh God, Fresh Air and Mark Maron, WTF. I listen, mostly that type of stuff. Doug, you weren't on here yet, but I had trouble sleeping last night. So I put in a podcast and I was listening to it. There's a movie reviewing podcast called Rewatchables, where they take a movie that's like a movie that you'll like watch anytime it comes on, you'll rewatch it. And they talk for like 2 hours about it. But they happen to talk about Brokeback Mountain. And I had never seen it, but I know it's about, but they talked about how sad. And I woke up in the morning just with this feeling of dread, like this feeling of like sadness in my life. Like all day long, I was just like, oh God.
So not a good podcast to listen to at bedtime.
No, definitely not. So I listen to those. Plus I listen to Tolkien podcasts. I listen to a J.R.R. Tolkien Lord of the Rings podcast.
Podcasts or like books on tape?
Podcasts. There's this one couple of different groups that do these long, they go on super nerdy podcasts. So it seeps into your
dreams. I was telling him that I woke up in the middle of the night, and a lot of times I'll pop in mine and I'll listen to podcasts. And last night I was listening to, I think it's called 3 Bean Salad, I was listening to one that was just kind of just this pop culture talk. And because it's just voices to me, I'm not really taking it in, but it ran into the 3 Bean Salad, and there's like 3 of these British guys talking, and it totally bled into my dreams. And in my dreams, Hugh Grant was talking to me with one of the voices, but I'm like, but you don't sound like Hugh Grant. So it was very funny. Well, I thought it was funny. Yeah. So anyway, back to art. Just want to talk about like who inspired you guys as artists, or who continues to inspire you.
I can start. I started art late in life. I had always liked art. In my adult life, I've really been interested in seeing and taking in art. Sort of developed a particular taste toward more modern art, to some extent, probably more abstract type art. But before I started doing any art, which was, like I said, about 6-7 years ago, the 2 artists that I had seen and come to know that probably ended up really being the inspiration for me even to think about wanting to try making art were Robert Rauschenberg and Joseph Cornell. Rauschenberg more for his sort of boldness and experimentation, innovation. He did, he kind of would work with, he's made art out of basically just about anything you can think of. And he's pioneered a lot of techniques and processes that were, his work was appealing to me aesthetically, but then, in terms of what he achieved as an artist was pretty monumental in terms of just the scope of it all. So that he was one. And then Joseph Cornell made shadow boxes was kind of the thing that at least the main thing from his art that I got really interested in, where he would sort of create these, you could call them assemblages, but he was using found objects as well as collage, and then having these boxes that he made to sort of be a frame, and then he would assemble these things in these very dreamlike, mysterious sorts of poetic constructions. And so those were my initial influences. And then, I actually, before I even started collage, in a very unserious, unstructured way, I tried my hand at making shadow boxes, what Joseph Cornell made, my own take on that. And I did that for a number of years, probably going back 15 plus years. But it was sort of one here, one there. And I wasn't really working at a discipline in terms of thinking through, trying to get better with composition and kind of more core things. So they're a little, I look at them now and they look kind of goofy to me. But there was already there, that was the beginning of me, having that desire to create. Then I guess as I've moved from collage into mixed media and painting more, I've been looking at a lot of the like abstract expressionists, mainly, people like de Kooning and Robert Motherwell, Richard Diebenkorn.
What about you, Mr. DePuller?
I have said this on previous occasions, but I do find my brother Doug very inspiring, and not only for his cool studio, but what he's been able to create and how he's been able to kind of change his style of work, and the fact that he's untrained as an artist. He's kind of self-taught. Would you agree with that, Doug?
100%. Yeah.
He's kind of taken it upon himself to teach himself art, and he knows so much more than I do. So I find him very inspiring. For people who are no longer alive, it would have to be Duchamp and Man Ray. They're probably my favorite artists of all. Just though I'm guessing based on their background, I probably wouldn't understand a thing. Their stuff would probably just go right over my head. But I would like to at least try to figure out if we could communicate through art. I think that'd be cool. I love those two guys.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Doug. You're an influence on me as well. I was digging back more to the early ones, but
you didn't want me to think that I was
co-inspired.
Oh, it's fun. We had the one kind of workshop or just art session, and it was just nice you guys were kind of feeding off each other and looking at what the other was doing and stuff like that. So I definitely see the mutual appreciation and the synergy between you guys. So
you can send the check to my home address, Doug.
Well, we've talked about collaborating a few times. I still want to do that. We just need to work out what we would want to create. I think our work would pair up pretty nicely. We just have to figure out what kind of rules of engagement we want to have for a collaboration. But I think it'd be a lot of fun. We'll eventually get there.
Oh, that's cool. When we had the opening, you're both talking about a dream project to work on. Maybe that would be an interesting collaboration opportunity or something like that. Just talk about what you'd love to see, what you'd love to accomplish.
Out of a collaboration together, or
just in general, like what?
Oh, a dream project?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we had the opening, two things, and they're not like these grand, super complicated, wild visions, but I do want to work. I've scaled up now from when I was just doing straight paper collages, and even now when I do them, they tend to be really small, like 5.5 by 7.5 inches on paper. So I do lots of those. But then I wanted to be able to scale up and work on things that I could have in shows and galleries and things like that. So that's when I started, probably 16 by 20 18 by 24, like in that range. And I've never really gotten to where I could do the exact same kind of work that I do with my small collages on that scale. There's potential, with printing things and enlarging things that I could make that work. But as I started to do that, I started bringing, paint naturally kind of came into the equation because you can fill up portions of a canvas or a panel, as you can take as much of that real estate as you want with swatches of paint. Whereas, if you're working with imagery in a magazine or a book, it's limited. But now I'd really like, as I've now gotten a little more comfortable working with paint as part of my process, I really thought a painting slash collage. I use collage in everything. There's some collage in all of my work. Now it's a layer somewhere in a piece, but it may not be visible on the surface. I'm working on the biggest things I've worked on are probably 3 feet by 3 feet. I'd like to work on a canvas that's like, 10 by something, just to really get the feel of how my process would adapt, like spreading much larger volumes of paint onto much larger surface area and using different kinds of tools and just the physical movement of that opens up. I'm pretty tall and I have long arms. Constricting my movements to a 7.5 by 5.5 inch piece of paper is a little static. So I think just the more dynamic movement of working big would be exciting.
Do you find it a challenge to, when you're scaling it to a larger format, you're losing that condensed kind of details that maybe make a smaller composition more interesting, and then to go to a bigger one, it's more spread out or something like that?
Yeah, you would think, but I guess I'm a maximalist, so it tends to fill up anyway.
Okay.
Just fills up differently. What's fun with collage, just pure paper collage, and the smaller collages that I've done that sort of became the thing that I kind of then built a little bit of following on Instagram and that kind of thing. It was just the juxtaposition of imagery. I mean, imagery, text, graphic elements, plain paper, whatever. But it was those juxtapositions that I think people who really love collage get excited about when you can pair up things weirdly, at least in the area of more abstract collage that I do. Those become interesting. When I work larger and have maybe pieces of little bits of imagery on a much bigger surface, then I start working to create interest in other ways. So there's a lot more mark making than I used to be, or than I've used in my collage. And that's taken a while to get comfortable with, scribbling and, just loosening up enough to make wild brushstrokes on things and things like that. But that to me has become like the new thing for me. So that I'm kind of excited about that right now.
Who was that artist that you like, that's a current collage artist who does a lot of those commercial? I want to say, I know it when I see it, but he does like a lot of like pop art kind of photographs of celebrities. And
Are you talking about Robert Mars?
Robert who?
Robert Mars, like kind of Americana. Are you talking about a really well-known artist, or are you talking about a guy that
well-known?
Well-known.
I think Robert Mars sounds.
Robert Mars was a guy that I was interested in. It was a lot of like, he would do a lot of like Americana stuff and kind of vintage, old, he would do these things where I think he went out and took a lot of his own photographs. And then
it might have been him, but he did like, he does those big things when you're talking like wall size, big wall size. Right.
Yeah, he does that different style. That was actually, his style was really influenced kind of the early kind of collage that I was making. Then I started doing resin like him. I kind of copied that idea from him. And then I got tired of the whole thing and started making abstract collage. But yeah, definitely getting to these bigger works would be a lot of fun.
Cool. What about you, Doug Fuller?
When you asked about what we really would like to do, I thought you were going to say, look under your chairs. There's a key to a brand new warehouse studio for you, rent-free for a year.
I was inspired after that to find a warehouse for you guys. I was like, I want to make this happen.
Like Doug, I started working larger just because I've been finding larger things and I want to be able to use the pieces and try to see what I can do with them. So like those car parts, like the one that's at your gallery right now, And I've got a couple others that plus stuff that are aging in our driveway, unfortunately. But I would like to, and I'd also like to be able to do kind of the way. Have you been to Perry Naz's studio space?
Yes, I
where
have.
she's got like
The barn.
Yeah, the barn, half studio gallery, half
entertaining. Yeah,
something like that would be kind of cool to be able to fill that with some neat stuff. I think it was called the Armory Show. Was that the show back in the early 1900s when they just basically threw everything they could at the wall and just tons of stuff, and very shocked people because of that, because they were.
Yeah, Duchamp. That was the one where Duchamp. I think Duchamp, like, I can't remember. There's something. Duchamp had something in that show. Yeah, I think the urinal. Yeah.
My dream was I think I told you this, Doug. There was a dry cleaners down the street in this little convenience center near our house that was for lease for like 4 or 5 years. And it was just a small space and it was partially deconstructed. I wanted to rent it for a month. That's all I wanted. And I thought, sure, they would love to have a month's rent because they're not doing anything with it. And when I proposed it, they were like, look, they said, no, it's the price is what it is. And eventually they put it up in a nice coffee shop in there. But I thought that would have been a great place, like an old dry cleaners. It would be perfect for stuff that's half deteriorating as it is.
No, it did. It did actually. This is the first time I was able to, because when you first mentioned it at the opening, I couldn't like pull out my phone and start looking, but now I can. So now I'm looking. It was a 1913 show. Is that the one?
Yeah. When I did the Sidewalk Art Show back during COVID, one of the people, a California artist whose work I just absolutely love, and he's kind of a bit of a Dadaist, he was really in love with the show I did. And he said, you created your very own armory show. I think I know what that is, but if he said it, it must be good. I was so excited to hear about that. So
that's cool.
Filling an armory with your art, that is ambitious. I know you can do it. You have an armory's worth of found junk to work with already. So.
I do.
That's interesting.
But the dog is moved down on the floor and underneath the cat.
Oh.
The cat's still in the same position. I was going to call from downstairs where I do a lot of my work, but I was afraid that cat was going to start using the litter box and the dog was going to start getting in the cat box and be a disaster.
It's all very lovely. Well, this has been nice to chat and get something down. There's people.
We're just getting started.
We can keep going. I mean, who says,
I'll go to 7:30. 12 minutes.
Yeah. I mean,
even hour.
We can like
do.
This is way more comfortable than I was expecting. So I'm good to stay for a while.
Good.
Sure how being on a podcast was going to feel, but this just feels like chatting with you guys. So
I'm a lot less grotesque than I thought I'd be.
I think it's fine, but I'm sure people would love to see it anyway. Make sure we put some pictures up with you guys and your art.
I like your gallery behind you, Sil.
Oh, this is my first kind of larger scale. I mean,
wow.
So it was the two dogs in the back of the Saab. I used to have a Saab wagon, and it was a 2 Airedale. So yeah, so I remember it's funny. I remember standing in my apartment, just kind of painting that, and I would paint. I like the TV on myself, and so a lot of times, a lot of the paintings, when I look at them, it triggers a memory to a certain movie. So it's neat. I like.
Can you go back to the names? Are they Kaiser? Was it Kaiser Wolfgang? Kaiser
Wolfgang and Luke the Lily, or tight-lipped Lucas the Lily, because he had like a normal dog mouth. I know this is a funny conversation, but whenever I groomed them, I would trim their hair and I would brush their teeth and I would scrape their plaque off their teeth and stuff like that. And whenever I would be going at Luke with the toothbrush,
clam up,
his mouth went to something tiny. He was my mom's dog. Like when my mom, I'd be like, Mom, please don't leave him again, because she would leave to go to the bank or go for lunch or something. And he would literally just cry for her. And we always joked, like, this is what he would sound like. He would be like, Mom, for like nonstop until she came back. But one day he was in her office and she always had fresh flowers in there. And He just goes up and I catch him sniffing the lily. His nose is right in there. I just thought, well, that's an interesting dog right there, smelling the flowers. It's like a Disney dog. So yeah. And I don't know why Kaiser Wolfgang. He had a lot of names. I'm sure you've got a lot of different names for your dog. We always used to joke because Wolfgang would take off. My parents live on a big property, and he would take off, and I just thought there must be like very interesting mixes of like Airedale Terrier and porcupines and Airedale Terrier and skunks out there or something like that. He was a romantic type. But
wow.
So, Doug, what is the last thing you worked on? Probably this morning, right?
The last time I worked I didn't do any art today. I did some art yesterday or the day before. I've sort of run out of wall space. So I'm like, my latest dilemma, I think you and I have talked about that because it's even a bigger challenge for you because your stuff has depth to it. So you can't, stack them or whatever. Yeah. But I've been working a lot on canvases and panels lately, like with the stretchers and the cradles or whatever you're going to call them. So they've got some depth to them and I can put them on walls and I can have them in shows and that's great. But since I'm not really selling a lot of work, they stack up. And I figure whatever's coming back from the show at Sills Gallery.
Nothing's coming back. It's all staying.
Well, let's hope. But
it's permanent.
Yeah. A permanent
or
collection.
It's all sold or it's all sold. Yeah.
But then even since that show, I made a bunch of other stuff and I had some older stuff. So it's like, now I'm trying to figure out good options for working flat. So I picked up some hardboard panels and, I've never tried those. So I tried those. I tried some canvas board. Then I also got a pad of 18 by 24 mixed media paper. So I've been mostly working on the mixed media paper. The nice thing with those is I feel like it allows me to work big, but not even worry about whether something's ever going to be gallery ready. I like immediate gratification. So I like working fast and feeling like, okay, I put something together and it's pretty cool and good enough, move on. But so I do a lot of stuff like that. And then, there are other pieces that I like to let simmer and work over weeks on canvases. So yeah, I've been working on some things that are a mix of collage and paint and mark making and stuff.
Did you do anything with that
paper?
That unicorn?
No, I found it in neighborhood trash. I was driving my cousin back out to my sister's house where she lives with my sister, and she stayed with us over the weekend. And it was like trash day the next day. So there was a canvas, and it was just, it was propped up so I could see this unicorn, and I could tell it was a canvas on a stretcher. And I'm like, I'm always looking for free ones to work on, substrate. So that one's, I just decided it's so sweet that I hate to ruin it and put my own work on it, but I'm pretty unattached to almost everything. So I will definitely cover it with something new.
I'm so proud of you going in the neighbor's trash.
Oh no, I've been a dumpster diver for a long time. What about you? What's your latest?
My latest has been some production stuff. I've been painting some boards and some things I have to take to Saturday to when we work at Sills' place. At the gallery, I'm going to have some so I can hopefully make some new pieces with the backing because I can't really work until I have backing. So I painted them and I used some old paint that I had a can of that was like all starting to dry and it was really gloopy and gloppy. And so I used that. The problem is I have to work in my garage and it's really humid and I'm not sure if it's going to dry in time because it's really thick and it's really humid in there. So. But that's the latest thing I've done. Not very exciting, but I have to work on those backing boards. I have to work like real messy because otherwise I'll get obsessed with making them perfect. And if I see a scratch in them, I'll be real upset. But if you just paint it with like a real messy brush and really just glop it on there and let it drip, and then it provides some interest to it. And it also makes it so that you're not as obsessed when it inevitably gets scratched or damaged. So that's how I deal with my compulsive nature, my perfectionist nature, I should say.
I found a washer for you, just a little one.
Like a washing machine?
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, not a little washing machine. No. Anyway, you'll see it. Just like you like a little metal. Yeah, that would be good.
Thank you. I
there
appreciate
you go.
that.
I think a logical aspiration for Doug would be doing these like massive sculptural things like, I think it's Armand. Is that the name of the guy, Doug? Do you know the guy I'm talking about? I think he just goes by Armand, and he's done like these stacked full size, full car bodies.
Oh, John Chamberlain. John Chamberlain does the like crushed cars, and he like adds paint and stuff to them, and it makes them kind of like these either wall hangings or sort of almost totem poles.
Oh, okay. Well, Armand he's a French-born American artist.
Yeah,
he's done,
it is Armand.
But smaller scale.
I don't know.
Just a lot of I just always liked all of his stuff. But one of the things that I found like the most interesting and striking are these like monstrous towers of cars that he's assembled together into this tower and like cemented, put them into, like, use cement to kind of like, I guess it's cement to sort of.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I didn't realize that was the name. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're
You know what it's called? It's called long-term parking.
Yes.
So yeah, Armand, Arman. That's the name of the.
I've seen John Chamberlain's work in a museum up in New York, and his is just different. It's more, it's pieces of cars that have been welded together and crunched and everything, and he does really fit. I should have mentioned him. His work is really great.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess it's an interesting question. Like, is there like a dream location where you'd love to have your art shown? What do you think? What's most desired? We're manifesting right now.
Like the idea of being an artist and having your work at, one of the great museums would be like a dream, but I don't think it's a even remotely plausible one. I mean, the other thing I think would be to do some kind of art, like a public art, thing where it's actually outdoors on some kind of permanent display outdoors. I just think I always love seeing, regular graffiti, like cities that have lots of murals. Baltimore's got like whole areas where there's just murals everywhere. But something like that would be really cool. But other than that, I'd settle for MoMA, Whitney, Hirshhorn. I love the Hirshhorn here in DC. Glenstone, that's a really neat place.
I'd like to do Palm Springs, because that seems to be the desert Southwest is like I follow some artists who are from that area. It seems to be where you find all the good stuff because it just rusts in the sun, or actually make it part of the art. Constructing it or show it in the end. That'd be kind of fun. So Palm Springs, I'm looking for my tickets. Where are they?
Wait till after after we get off, and then you can look.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think so.
Nervous about it, and I wasn't sure how my stomach would hold up, but
I'm sorry about your stomach being upset.
That's
that
okay.
Stinks.
I might just start my own podcast series.
Years ago, when I started on Instagram, I had probably a couple hundred followers, and I was thinking I was a big deal. And I tried to convince Doug, you should get into Instagram. He's like, no, what would I want with Instagram? Now he's like sucked up all the followers, and he's got 12,000 followers. He's got a lot, but anyway.
So now he's going to be like a podcasting star.
Curses.
And we'll be listening to him.
An influencer.
Schulte.
We're going to be... Doug Fuller and I will be respectively listening to your podcast in the middle of the night.
Love it. Yeah.
We know. What did he say? What was he talking about? Yeah, no, it'll be a good one. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Easy enough. Easy as pie. All right.
Thanks so much, Sil.
Yeah, we'll chat again.
Thanks for sitting down and having a tea with us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Sit Down and Have a Tea wherever you get your podcasts. To explore more art and connect with the community, visit us at wolfgangandluke.com or stop by the gallery in Sterling, Virginia. Until next time, keep discovering, keep creating, and keep sharing the art that moves you.